All right, guys, this video is to show you how you can build an outline for your essay right in the test, typing your evidence directly into the box, and then writing your whole essay around that evidence. This method should be quick and get you to at least a 6 out of 8 points. Let's look at our question here. Would it be preferable to experience polar nights or midnight sun? Our purpose is to pick one and argue it. Our audience is our geography teacher and classmates. We read all these articles last week. We took notes. Here are some notes. We've got source 1, all about the reason why that happens at the poles, 24 hours of light during the summer and 24 hours of almost dark during the winter. We have source 2, all about the symptoms, the downsides of midnight sun and polar night. And then source 3, all about the fun activities that you can do in the midnight sun or polar darkness. We're going to use these notes to build our outline right here into our essay. I've already typed in the template, just like you'll have on your paper. So your intro, CER, your counterclaim, evidence for it, and then a rebuttal, and then your conclusion. So I've already typed in this first piece of evidence here. This piece of evidence about the syndrome that can be caused by a lack of light leads to increased forgetfulness and irritability. So we got that right out of the text, and we want to give credit to that. So we'll say, according to source number 2, all right, and all about that. So that's that piece of evidence. We can take out that E. We know this C stands for claim, our first mini claim. We're going to say the downsides of polar nights are worse than the downsides of midnight sun. All right. So we'll come back up here and do our reasoning. Let's think about what our second body paragraph is going to be all about, just so we know that we're using our time wisely and we have a plan. So this second one, if we look back at our notes, we can talk about all the great activities there are to do in 24-hour sun. All right, if we wanted to, we could go up here and start building our thesis statement by answering the big question. So the big question is, would it be preferable to experience polar nights or midnight sun? I'm going to start with words from the question. I'm hitting enter so that I separate out my intro from my body paragraphs. It would be preferable to experience, midnight sun over polar nights because now I know my first reason, right, is going to be the downsides of polar nights are worse, okay? So because the downsides of polar nights are worse, and I'm not totally positive yet what my second reason is going to be, okay? I'm going to leave that blank. We have our first body paragraph here, which is going to be the CER. Let's work on this second body paragraph here and think about what evidence we have, something to do with our notes here and all these outdoor activities. You can garden, you can go biking and hiking. Let's find that article and that something about that we can use as a piece of evidence. So we might say, again, according to, and this is source number 3, people can work in their gardens at all hours of the night. Okay, and then we can also say the author also mentions all kinds of activities people enjoy with more light. Like, we might give another quote here. We've got hiking, bicycling, camping. Unfortunately, you do have to type it in. Can't copy and paste from the articles. Okay, you could use your dot here and say midnight, kind of skip a little of that passage. Sun sporting events, such as marathons and golf tournaments. So what is our mini claim here that this piece of evidence is supporting? We can take out the E for evidence. We've done that. We're going to take out the C for claim, and let's go ahead and make our claim. Midnight sun is awesome because of all of the outdoor activities. Goodness. People can experience with more hours in the day. How about that? All right, we know we're going to come back to our reasoning here. Let's come down to what piece of evidence can we acknowledge from the other side? What's great about those polar nights? So we know that in our notes, again, we looked at the northern lights, the aurora borealis. So let's find that piece of the article. And it says, let's go ahead and according to source number 3. People can see the northern lights. Also called the aurora borealis. And we might use our dot there and say created from a collision between, I'm just copying directly from the text here. I've got my quotes around it. Electrically charged particles. And we could end it there because that could be a complete idea. All right, so what is the counterclaim here that this piece of evidence is referring to? So I'm going to go back. I've given my piece of evidence. I'm going to erase that. And over counterclaim, I'm going to give my counterclaim and say some people claim that polar nights are better because of things like northern lights. Okay. And then we'll give a little bit of information about what those northern lights are. We know we're going to come back and give our rebuttal while we're at it. Maybe we'll just give it right now. So, hey, those lights are great, but and let's go ahead and acknowledge that those lights would sound interesting to see, even though seeing the northern lights would be great. It just could not outweigh all of the many benefits of outdoor activities and maybe interacting with nature that extra sunlight allows. All right, let's see what we need to go back and add to. We need a second part to our intro here. So we already talked about one of our reasons being the downsides of polar nights being worse. So we need to add our second mini claim here. So, and because of all of the many exciting benefits or outdoor adventures people can have in 24 hours of sun? How about? All right, now we need our reasoning here. So let's see, this condition leads to increased forgetfulness and irritability. That reminds me of what they said is needed to fix that. If I go back to my notes, you can't see it here, but we talked about lamps and exercise, okay? So maybe in our reasoning, we can say people need special lamps and more exercise in order to get over the problems that come with polar nights. We need reasoning here. So let's see, what else could we say about all of these benefits of the outdoor activities? Perhaps being able to participate in so many outdoor activities in nature sounds much healthier than having to deal with all of the problems that would come from being in mostly darkness. All right, we need a conclusion. Let's restate our thesis, which is about the downsides of polar nights and the great benefits of midnight sun. So we'll say, overall, midnight sun is preferable to polar nights, not mites, but nights, because of the fact that more sunlight helps people stay, maybe we can say, more active, happy, and healthy. Maybe we've got time for a mic drop. So if you are going to visit one of the poles, North Pole or South Pole, be sure to visit, when is the light happen? In the summer. Boom. All right, next video will show you how to take this from a 6 or 7 to an 8. See you next time.